over a 2-day period, hence the part 1 and 2 that you saw in your lecture notes yesterday. So we have our equivalence property here in 4.5. And really this just takes the exponent and makes them equal to one another. This is for exponential form, I should note. So I'm able to say here, if you don't get a number in exponential form, then I recommend you rewriting it in exponential form if possible, which is what I've done here to eventually get down to here. So let's look at our let's try it problem. Eight is equal to 2 to the third. Some of them will come easier than others. Most of the time, they're not going to give you something that doesn't relatively quickly come to mind. So now I can set 2t minus 3 equal to 3. Add 3 to each side. And get 2t equal to 6 to see that t equals 3. Now, we're going to use logarithms to solve, using exponential form to solve for logarithms. My bad. We will do the reverse in a minute. So here's an example. I'm going to use this exponential form here and add a natural log or logarithm to solve for x. Now, let's try it. Look at the example, see what I've got going on there, and let's try our own down here. I think that's the most beneficial. So let's take the natural log of both sides. So I get the natural log of 3, and I can move this x minus 5 out to the front using our power property that we learned over in 4.4. And I took the natural log of this side, which means I need to take the natural log of this side. Now I can just do some regular arithmetic to see ln of 4 over ln of 3 plus the quantity 5 is x. Now, what's really nice about this is that it gives you a nice form for plugging in your calculator. Yes, x means the same here as it does here, but this is going to be a lot nicer for you to plug into the calculator. Now, use substitution. My favorite. There is always one of these on midterm 3, if not the final. So let's take a second while my iPad loads. Use substitution really just helps you get ready to solve as if it was a quadratic. I am going to pause and start a next video starting with use substitution. So I'll be right back. Let's take a second to maybe erase some so it's not quite as slow. All right, let's get back to it. talk about U substitution. Like I said, you are likely going to have a U substitution on your exam. I can almost guarantee you will have a U substitution on your exam. Most certainly the midterm, potentially even the final. It's one of the biggest takeaways from this section. So, it really just wants us to make it into a form that looks like a quadratic equation. So here I am going to replace e to the x with u, which I've done in this step. Pulled out my 2, then I factored. Now that I have 2 values for my u equals 3 and u equals -2, I need to look at what my u stands for once again. And I know that e to the x equals 3 and e to the x equals -2. I want you to graph e to the x on your calculator. And you're going to see that negative values are not included in the e to the x graph. So negative numbers cannot equal e to the x. That means our only u value is 3. So e to the x equals 3. Then, using what we have solved for previously, you'll find that x equals the natural log of 3. And if they want a decimal value, you can plug in your calculator from there. So let's try this one ourselves. I made a little start on this question so that I wouldn't get confused, but here we need to do a little bit of math before we're able to do our substitution itself. This is not pretty, but it's workable. So I multiplied each side by e to the x. And doing this to that side got nothing, because e to the x times 0 is still going to get me 0. So I multiply, then I multiply, which gets rid of this e to the x, and gives me another e to the x. So now I can do my u substitution. U squared minus 12 minus 1 equals 0. So now I know that, let's see, I need something that equals -1, and when added together equals -12. This one is in your notes from class, so I'm going to have you refer back to your notes from class for this one. My main point to you here is that e to the x can be a range value. So up here, it was a domain value. That is why u could not equal -2. Okay. My video might have frozen again. Main points and then a couple reminders before I go, and then I will talk to you guys next week. So, our equivalence property of logarithms really says this. which we kind of have went over already. So I want to just reiterate it. It's just presented in a different form in part 2 of 4.5, so that's why I'm kind of going over it again. Maybe a good hint that it will be on the exam. It was in the notes twice. Okay, so we take this, set them equal to each other to get our x equals 3. Now we're in the same natural log again here. So that means I can say this equal to each other and this equal to each other. And then we can solve. So I'm going to move my 5x over, and I'm going to get negative 12 equals 2x. So x must equal negative 6. Boom. Now, earlier I mentioned solving logarithmics using exponential. So that's what I'm going to do here for you. Here's an example. This would go back to 4.2 and 3, where you learned how to go from exponential to log and log to exponential. Here I've got it's b to the x, so I have my base and my x equal to this. So now I'm able to move that 4 over, so I'm going to rewrite that as x squared minus x. Now I got to move this 4 over, so now I have negative 6. And that's how I am able to factor these. So x equals 3, and x equals negative 2. And now I have this. Now remember, that's not an e to the x value. So negative is okay here. I made that note again, but that's just a reminder. And one of the things that might slip you up if you're not careful. A few reminders before I go. Don't stop practicing story problems. Really nothing new here in the story problems for 4.4 and 4.5. But instead of setting them up and giving every variable, you're just going to use logs to solve for those variables. And I have quite a few practice problems for you in the problems that I'm going to be sending. So take note of those. They're just like the ones that are in your notes. And inverse, I'm not sure if that will be on your exam. Normally that's a 4.6 content piece. But remember, just solve for inverse. X becomes y. And then solve. Other than that, I want you all to stay safe and stay healthy. I will be back with another video next week. It will not be as long as this one was, probably, just because I will only have one section of information for you, but I will have practice problems over that video, and you also will have your practice midterm, if not Sunday, but Monday at the latest. Stay safe, stay healthy, everyone. Find something that you do like, get outside, get a breath of fresh air. We can all do this.